In this video, I'm going to show you how I finish my tabletops and apply the finish. So my preferred finish, and I definitely recommend it, is Odies oil. I'll talk about that more later in this video. But the first part I want to talk about, because this is a live edge tabletop, this part will be a little bit unique to this table, what I'm going to discuss next. So to help clean up the live edges, I use a sanding star. So I get these from Woodcraft. Again, they're called sanding stars. I'll link them in the description. Picked up this tip from Jason Miles from Wayward Grain. And just like myself, he works with a lot of pieces because we both do river tables where the edges are really unique and they have some really incredible features. And this is, at least for me, the best way I found to clean up those edges without damaging those features. And so again, these are great for cleaning up live edges. That's what I use them for. And these are sanding stars from Woodcraft. So I do recommend doing this outside, this part. That's why I'm outside today, because it can make quite a mess. So, you know, if possible, do it outside. Let's take a look now at the live edge after we sanded with the sanding star. And you can see here what a nice job it does. Gets everything nice and clean while preserving any of the unique features. You can see right here, if you would have hit this with a sander, this all would have been removed. And then let's just take a quick look at a part that still needs sanded, and you can see the difference here. There's still some loose material, it's rough and not cleaned up yet. But again, sanding stars, Woodcraft, definitely my recommended method to clean up live edges. All right, so next I'm going to show how we finish the underside of the tabletops. So the live edges are cleaned up with that sanding star. We always start with the underside of the piece, and we'll start with 120 grit. We'll go 120, 150, 180, 220, 240. So we work our way through those 5 grits. Couple tips here, some things I've learned along the way. So one thing is, I was having trouble originally where I was seeing like these path marks along my tabletops. And so after talking to the reps at Festool, they gave me a couple tips and it's really helped out. So what we do as we're sanding our pieces, we go with the grain, we go against the grain, and then the new part that I've added, the third pass is random, and I wasn't doing that originally. And like I said, I would see these path marks in the wood. So the random has really helped eliminate that. And then the next tip was, between each grit sequence, we vacuum the pad here. And then also make sure the sander is turned down, the suction is turned down to about 1/4 to 1/3. And so those are really the 3 big things that have really helped improve the sanding process here. You know, when you have pieces like this, we have knots in this wood, we have figuring. You do have to spend a little bit more time in those areas. But again, if you make sure to do the 3 passes with, against, and then random, suction the pad in between, and then have your suction down to about 1/3 or 1/4, it really helps. So I'm going to be using the Rotex 150, RO 150 here on this piece. I do also have the ETS 150, and that is my preferred sander, but we're using it on another piece right now today. So either one works fine. And then I just make sure I have this one on the fine setting. If I'm using the Rotex, I do not use the coarse setting. So when I'm sanding my pieces for finish, it's on the fine setting. The other part here I want to talk about is I use granite sandpaper, Festool's granite sandpaper. John, I think his name's John. John from Down to Earth Woodworker. No, not John. I think it's Steve Johnson. So Steve from Down to Earth Woodworker, he has a really good video where he explains all the different Festool sandpapers. Again, I use granite. One of the main reasons is you can sand up to at least 2,000 grit, I believe, and we sand up to 1,000 grit on our top sides. So that's one of the things I really like. I've always used it from the beginning, and you know, I've just had good success with it, so I stay with it. So again, I use the granite sandpaper, and one of the main reasons is because I have a grit. But I'll link the video in the description. But again, Steve from Down to Earth Woodworker has a really good video, explains all the different Festool sandpapers if you want to use Festool, and the different reasons you might want to use each of those. And that's it. All right, so I'll show you a little bit here of the sanding process, and you know, it's particular how those paths work along the piece. Okay, before we move on, just a little side note. As I was starting with the 120 on fine, I was having a lot of trouble getting the sander marks from the wide belt sander out of the figured areas. So these figured areas, the areas in the wood that have a lot of, you know, really wild grain and figuring or even not, the sander leaves really deep impressions in those, and visually they really stand out. So I know I said on the Rotex I don't use the coarse setting, but I lied. I actually do use the coarse setting. So what I'll do in situations like this where there are a lot of knots or is a lot of figuring, I'll do my first passes, you know, the width of grain against and random, I'll do on coarse with 120, and it does an amazing job of getting all those marks out. And then I'll go back with 120, and from that point forward I'll stay on the fine setting, and so I'll do fine, 120, and then from there everything else will be fine. But I actually do, again, use coarse for that first round of passes on pieces like this, a live edge piece like this, where there is a lot of really unique grain, because otherwise it's just so time consuming to get the sander marks out, and sometimes you can't even get it out without going down to 80 or even 60 grit. So again, that's where the Rotex is such a time saver, is on pieces like this, to help with that type of grain. So again, Rotex, coarse setting, first pass on 120.